Casper, how you doing?
I'm doing good. Yourself?
You are the first person to be in our office, which is over there. Everybody's working.
Yeah.
So you have in our private room, and thank you for supporting us, by the way.
Yeah.
Those viewers will have seen you on the pre-roll, so nice to see you there. So tell us a little bit about this. This is a new plugin you're running, yeah, right?
Yeah, so it's a new plugin called Taip. It's out in 12 days. And as we discussed earlier, why make a new Taip plugin? There's a million of them out there already. What's different about this one is the emulation method. It's AI-based, hence the name there. And the way it works is basically we've trained an algorithm on a lot of audio examples that are processed through real hardware tape machines versus dry examples. And the emulation is basically spit out by the algorithm itself.
So it's figured out the difference.
Yeah, exactly. So instead of us trying to use impulse responses or guesstimate how these different components in the analog circuitry work together and all the mutual dependencies that you have in an analog piece of equipment, instead of us trying to figure out how to imitate that in the DSP realm, we've basically used this AI algorithm that figures it out by itself. And that's been a lot of trial and error. We've been working on it for more than a year, just trying to, calibrate this AI algorithm so that it's able to detect the differences between the wet audio examples and the dry audio examples.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So we can have a listen, can't we, I think? And hear what
yeah, so I just have a simple drum loop here that's running. This is dry without anything on, and I'm going to activate the plugin. And so where the magic happens is this drive knob here. You can use it to have like a subtle touch of glue, like you would use a normal tape machine for on your master bus or whatever. You can also drive it pretty hard. I'm just going to listen in here. So you can crunch it a little bit. So this is basically setting the drive. And the idea is people can use it from anything from like a subtle touch of glue to like a straight up distortion plugin. And then we've separated out some of the characteristics of analog tape into separate parameters. So you have a noise feature, you have wear, which is a combination of wow, flutter, and also some of the things that happens in the top end when you...
well, the azimuth is all screwed and there's grooves in the tape head, right?
Yeah. So it's a mix of things that happen with this wear knob to basically just take you from either like a very clean tape sound to a beat-up tape machine with a beat-up tape roll in it. Then we've separated out like this glue compression. So we've basically tried to analyze this kind of almost glue compression effect that you have from a tape machine and say, could we strip that out and make it into its own feature where you can exaggerate it? So it's almost like on its own, it feels like it's a compressor, but at subtle levels, it's more like just like a tape compression effect to glue the whole thing together. Then this thing is pretty interesting. So there's the choice of a single or a dual model. And when you do the dual model setup, you have two tape machine emulations in a series where whatever you're doing on the drive is distributed equally between each of the two models. So if you're adding, in this case, like 12 dB of drive, each tape model adds 6 dB. So you have basically like a double effect.
Right, okay, I got it. I mean, many tape emulators are modelled on very specific things. You've got your ATR. Is this a specific machine, or is it more of a sort of generic kind of how?
Yeah, this is a good question. So it is a specific machine. So we found a tape machine in Holland, and it's a specific model. It's one of the most famous tape machines of the 20th century. And I don't want to say what it is because we don't have the rights to use the name.
Okay.
But it's a specific 1971 tape machine, also a very popular one, and one that sounds
I thought if it was Holland, I thought maybe it was going to be obscure Philips, but
No, it's not a Philips. It's not a Philips. You'll know what it is, and there are slight hints in the design as well. So it is one specific model. However, some of these features that we've added on top of it are made in DSP. So part of the thing we have as a brand is we don't want to just do an emulation. We want to take the core sound of the tape machine and model it as accurately as we can, and then add a bunch of features that are not necessarily emulation features, but that are useful for a producer or an engineer in the modern age. Like the idea of routing it through two instances, or some of these high shape and low shapes. So for instance, with the low shape, you're able to preserve low end and say you're distorting the low end less than the rest of the spectrum, or more in this case. If you take it backwards, it's like a bipolar switch. You can do the same with the high end. The wow and flutter is also made in DSP. So it's kind of a hybrid product between an actual emulation, that's just like a one-on-one emulation, and then a DSP product. So it's a bit of both worlds.
And how's the footprint? I mean, obviously everybody's always, even though we've got probably the most powerful computers that man can, imagine for audio at least, how's the weight?
So for an AI plugin, I'm pretty happy with it. It's the same as our Super VHS, which is it's pretty low. It's I mean, it's all relative. It depends on your setup.
Yeah.
But for the beta test, what feedback we've had is it's not too bad. It's people seem pretty happy with it.
And this will run what, AU, VST, all of those things.
Yeah, and it's M1 native for Mac, and we're also working on an AAX DSP version, so you can run it on your Pro Tools hardware.
Oh, right, cool.
Yeah.
So, I mean, when you say you're running AI, are you running those kind of on local computers, or are you using all this kind of cloud-based AI stuff?
Yeah. So that's a good question. So in the actual plugin as it's built, the AI part has already been done. So that's in how the algorithm is basically processing the signal. It's not AI in the sense that it's
not
in
real-time AI.
No, it's not real-time AI. So the AI part is in how we've created the emulation algorithm. And basically we've been training our algorithm on everything from death metal to classic music. So that was in the creation of the plugin. We used AI to basically get to the core sound of the plugin. When you export the plugin and when you use it day to day, it's not AI based in that sense.
So is it still there learning somewhere in a room, kind of?
Yeah, and we've fed it with tons of data. That's been the main R&D part here, is to figure out what happens if we feed it with this kind of data versus this kind of data. So it's very much like almost an interaction with the machine. Like you're feeding it different examples, then it spits out a result, then you're analyzing on that, then you feed it different data. So it's almost like you're interacting with the machine a little bit.
Interesting. So are you, I mean, the other question was, I guess, so is that AI entity, shall we call it, because it's all very sci-fi, isn't it?
Yeah.
Is that a living thing in your own a computer space, like a piece of hardware? Or
it lives in the cloud.
It's cloud,
it's
right?
cloud
Okay,
based,
yeah. No, I was curious because that's where all the power is available.
Yeah, it's cloud based, but it's interesting because it's almost the beginning for us now. Now that we've set all this up and created this first plugin, the possibilities are kind of endless, because once we have figured out the emulation method, there's a ton of gear we can take and go out and emulate this way. And we're starting to look into the next thing already.
Excellent.
Yeah.
So you say it's going to be out at some point in the future. What's the price point like to be?
It's going to be, like all our plugins, we'd rather sell a lot of them at a lower price than a few of them at a higher price. So it's going to be $69, and then there's probably going to be an intro offer as well. So that's been our strategy since the beginning. We just want to get out to people and give people some cool tools.
Brilliant. Thank you very much.
Yeah, of course.